On October 29, 2025, the Polish armed forces announced that fighter jets intercepted a Russian reconnaissance aircraft identified as an IL-20 flying in international airspace over the Baltic Sea. The Russian aircraft was flying without a filed flight plan and had its transponder turned off. Though it did not violate Polish sovereign airspace, its behavior triggered a rapid scramble of Polish MiG-29 fighters. This occurred amidst heightened vigilance on NATO's eastern flank, with airspace incursions and drone operations increasing in frequency. It underscores the tension not just on Ukraine's ground fronts, but in the airspace and maritime domain around Europe. It reminds us that the Ukraine conflict has spillover threats for NATO nations near the Baltic and Black Seas. Reconnaissance aircraft like the IL-20 can relay vital intelligence positioning, movement, signals which can shape battlefield decisions. Shifting to the ground war, the city of Pokrovsk in the Donetsk region is increasingly a focus of Moscow's efforts. According to President Zelensky, Russian forces have concentrated large numbers around Pokrovsk, outnumbering Ukrainian troops by as much as it serves as a railroad junction and supply node for Ukrainian forces in eastern Donetsk Oblast. Capturing it would threaten nearby towns like Kramatorsk and Sloviansk, part of what has been called the Fortress Belt. For Russia, advancing here could help solidify control over the Donetsk region, which Moscow claims as part of its territory. Zelensky described it as difficult, with fierce fighting, sabotage groups inside the area, and heavy assaults by Russian units. Ukraine's general staff confirmed small Russian infantry units, around 200 soldiers, had already breached parts of the town. While Russia has numerical superiority in this sector, analysts caution that claims of full encirclement or capture are premature or exaggerated. The Moscow Times. Now let's connect these two threads, the Baltic interception and the battle for Pokrovsk, and consider the broader implications. Global dimension of the war. Though the primary theater remains Ukraine, the involvement of NATO airspace, reconnaissance flights, Baltic Sea zones, and regional allies brings the conflict into the wider Euro-Atlantic security arena. Intelligence and reconnaissance matter. The IL-20 incident highlights how Russia uses aerial surveillance to gather intel and probe allied readiness. On the ground in Ukraine, intelligence about force concentrations, logistics nodes like Pokrovsk, and sabotage operations are critical. Pressure on Ukraine's lines of supply and reinforcement. If Russia secures nodes like Pokrovsk, it can threaten Ukrainian supply routes and reduce reinforcement flexibility, making ground defense harder, especially when outnumbered. Escalation risk and signaling intercepts and border airspace scrapes act as signaling tools. Russia may be testing NATO's reaction, while Ukraine and its allies may ramp up support if they feel the war is spilling over. Will this shift the momentum? While Russia has numerical advantage in one sector, Pokrovsk, and is probing in the air-sea domain, Baltic, Ukraine retains highly motivated defenders, significant Western backing, and asymmetric tools, drones, intel, long-range fire. The ultimate outcome rests on sustained mobilization, supply, morale, and strategic decision-making. Reinforcements and logistics. Will Ukraine be able to rotate and supply its defenders around Pokrovsk? Will Russia bring in fresh armored units or reserves to break through? Air and aerial operations. Will we see increased reconnaissance over the Baltic, more scrambles, and perhaps direct engagement? Will Ukraine and NATO increase patrols or watch zones? Supply node disruption. Will Ukraine or its allies target infrastructure or supply lines feeding the Pokrovsk front? Conversely, will Russia manage to cut or bypass these? Escalation close to NATO. If air-sea zones near Baltic or Black Seas become contested, will NATO become directly involved? Information and media war. Russia will attempt to portray victory or collapse of Ukraine's lines. Ukraine will emphasize resilience. Monitoring official statements, verified imagery, and independent analysis is key outcome scenarios. If Russia seizes Pokrovsk, the next logical targets are Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. If Ukraine holds, the front may stabilize, buying time for major counter-offensive preparations. European and global security architecture is being tested.